So there's not harmful ketosis. In fact, last year, the Metabolism Society, there's a Nutrition and Metabolism Society that talks about the science of low carb and other issues, but basically it's to get a venue for low carb science. It was all about ketone bodies. And you can get access to these lectures from a DVD that's available at the American Society of Bariatric Physicians. They make lecture videos of all of the conferences that are done. It's a great conference. It shows not only are ketones not harmful, they're probably healthful and healthy, and maybe even prevent things like cancer, like Alzheimer's, like epilepsy. So, you know, when we're really starting to shine the scientific light on low-carb diets and ketones, what we're seeing is good news. Okay, that was really an exciting conference. I think it's going to be perhaps like the Ancestral Health Conference. This is like the Woodstock of ketones, you know. I know that sounds pretty weird, but ketone power. We need a T-shirt like that, you know, right? The next myth: low-carb diets are hard to maintain. How many of you think low-carb diets are hard to maintain? Hey, wait.
Compared to what?
Yeah, compared to what? It's a great question. How many of you think low-carb diets are easy to maintain? You know, all right. So at least we know there are a couple hundred in the world who say that. So that's the response I get is, well, okay, well, at least you can do it, or maybe something magical about you and your patients. The first study I did, David Ludwig, who's a colleague of mine at Harvard, came up to me and said, well, Eric, that diet worked because you're so charismatic. I said, what? Yeah, it was. I was really pretty shocked. Well, flattered, but shocked. But so David just doesn't have the clinical touch or experience to know that this is something that he should continue to study, unfortunately. But he's pretty influential, and at least is open-minded and data-driven, and that's really all we data-driven. Meaning you follow the data and have an open mind to hear the data. At least he is that way. So, are low-carb diets hard to maintain? Well, Richard Feynman and Mary Vernon and I did a survey of the low-carbohydrate internet-based support group Active Low Carbers Forum. Now, a few years back, and there are maybe 80, 90, 100,000 now. I forget what it is today, who at least log in and say they're doing low-carb diets and have done it for a long time. And we had survey respondents, 2,000 people sent in all the health issues that got better, and it was pretty impressive. And I see that kind of as a template for where to take the science. But if we ever got the money to do the science, it's great. Probably should survey these folks again to see. To focus. What I've really done is formalized the clinical experience of doctors. I didn't come up with the idea, but I've been able to package it and put it in a more formal way so that it's more believable, and that's kind of like what I'd like to do with a survey like this. So my colleague and friend from Sweden, Andreas Enfeldt, helped me when I was there in Stockholm now a year and a half ago, gave a talk at an International Diabetes Association, and here was the hits on the website, the LCHF, and he tells me he's going to show even more, and it's even more popular. And I do hold Andreas partially responsible for the butter shortage in Norway. Hooray! It's too bad that, well, I don't know all the details.
Blame is credit.
Yeah, it's not blame, it's credit. Well, but people need butter, so it's kind of a mixed thing, they're not hard to maintain necessarily. And can you imagine back to when fitness, there weren't any gyms, there weren't any exercise machines, and if people said, well, no one's going to exercise, let's give up on it. Now, I mean, it's so important. How many people have home gyms and exercise and do it all the time? So we're kind of at that level of toddlerhood where, you tell the child, well, look, the child can't walk. Push him over. That's what I did to my third child, but not so fast. But so there has to be some support early on to help people maintain it, rather than the don't do that. I had a grocery store clerk who told me, don't eat all those eggs, your cholesterol will go up. I said, don't worry, I'm a doctor, and she wasn't reassured. So I figured out why after that. But so low-carb ketogenic diets increase cardiometabolic risk. So this is kind of the final myth that needs to be dispelled. The second to last chapter in the New Atkins book is written specifically for this. And Jeff Volek wrote the chapter to explain the shift from LDL cholesterol, which is what our doctors, and now even the US model has been exported around the world, unfortunately. Just the LDL is all that matters, the low density lipoprotein, the bad guy, the lethal cholesterol, I've heard it said, you know, that's not the only thing you look at. And so now we understand cardiometabolic risk, or what the underlying cause of heart disease and atherosclerosis and hardening of the arteries, all the same concept, really comes from the triglyceride and HDL part of that panel, so not just the LDL. And Jeff did a wonderful job of explaining that in the New Atkins book. My hope is that patients who really want to help their doctors through this educational process would hand out that book and just say, hey, look, can you look at the second to last chapter for me? You know, don't even read how to do it and all, which reminds me of Mary Vernon saying, you know, doctors refer their patients, but they say, don't tell me what you're doing. You know, I don't want to know that you're telling them to eat fat. Oh, because, you know, we all know that fat is bad. Well, the cholesterol panel that is done optimally should be fasting. What happens on a low-carb diet is that the triglycerides go down almost uniformly. I think I've seen one person whose triglycerides have not gone down, but that person still had a lot of weight to lose. So whether you're doing it in a weight loss phase or a regular weight maintenance phase matters. And then the HDL cholesterol, the good guy, the healthy cholesterol, goes up more than any other kind of intervention that we know of, better than any drug, better than exercise. And then this is the randomized trial. And remember, I show this to doctors who are like scrutinizing every little number on here. You know, if I have an asterisk off, I'll hear about it at the end of the talk. You know, so but you don't have to know all that. When you look at the type of LDL, and this is how you can explain it, is that the low density lipoprotein or bad cholesterol actually changes in quality. So it goes from the small LDL, which we think is the bad guy, to the large LDL, or large, light, and fluffy LDL. And that satisfies many of the preventive cardiologists who are into that and kind of understand that. So I get many referrals from a cardiologist at Duke who understands cardiometabolic risk in terms of this. So a cardiologist sends me patients to help with their metabolic problems, okay? Many cardiologists actually, but yeah, hooray for that. Hallmark of science is replication. The Shishrati paper showed the same kind of qualitative change as the Westman et al. Paper. And now, but there's some people, organizations who say, well, there's no meta-analysis, so we don't know if it's true. Well, there are several meta-analyses now of randomized controlled trials of low-carb diets. This one was by Nordman in 2006. And I just show all the cardiometabolic risk factors here. And on the right side of that vertical line, the low-carb group, the recurring theme is that in yellow is that the triglycerides go down more than a low-fat, low-calorie diet, and the HDL cholesterol, the good cholesterol, goes up more than in a low-fat, low-calorie diet. It's a recurring theme. We see it in just about every study.